One, two, three, two, two, three.
All right, so I guess we're live or live-ish now,
Kind of, sort of.
kind of, sort of. Anyway,
Yeah, cool. Let me cut my light on so everybody can see.
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, I just had the consent to being recorded.
yeah.
Apparently,
Oh, sure. It makes it says it out loud. I guess you're being recorded now. I guess not all states are like North Carolina's one party consent. So if
oh,
if only one party knows, it's fine. But that's not the case in most places.
right. I was about to say that, Mike. I mean, you want to know what, Andrew? That's why I'm in Georgia and not North Carolina anymore. Like little stuff like that. It's like those
Hmm.
little tidbits. And not totally pleased with Georgia, but that's not totally what we came here for either.
That's definitely not what we came here for. We came here to talk about some songs, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I guess the purpose of this is to I don't know, take a song from one song from like the hip hop world and one song from the non hip hop world, I guess, and
Yeah, I think.
look at some of the ways they're similar and like see how they're put together and the poetry in them and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I was kind of thinking about a way to frame it. I think it's like some genre unpacking going on,
Yeah.
where it's like we're getting into the nuances of some things like culturally that maybe like don't get explained. I don't know if you'd say non-hip hop. I would just say like more alternative, like rock and indie folk driven music,
Okay.
like outside of the hip hop sphere, because you know what I mean. Because there are things that are like within hip hop sphere that are still non-hip hop. I think some of the music, even like the song that we're going to go to after we talk about the hip hop song, or like that exists in a totally different sphere.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why like this is fascinating, is because the way that we're going to have to contextualize things is a little different. The
Right.
comparison,
Sure.
the analogies is going to require a little bit more digging, a little bit more depth. So
Yeah. So it ought to be pretty cool. I don't know how it's going to go and I don't know how this recording is going to go, but let's just get into it and see what happens.
yeah, this total trial run. I'm excited though. We've been talking about doing this for a while, so
Yeah, almost a year now.
it feels like it's been almost a year that we've been
It's been a
talking.
long time. Yeah.
It has been a long time. I wanted to say it's been at least 8 or 9 months that we've been
Yeah.
laying framework to do this, but we live in different states. We have family, we have lives, we have
Yeah.
schedules,
So
jobs.
so it was just an idea that I came up with and you were like, "Yeah, that sounds really cool. So let's see if we can do it."
Mhm. No, I love it. I do. So let's go ahead and kick it off.
Yeah.
So I guess well, let's give like quick little backstory about how we're doing this. Is like essentially like we're pairing songs that
Mhm.
kind of like come from different genres,
Right.
but kind of have like I guess similar themes or motifs. Would that be a
Mhm.
good way?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Sure. Yeah.
Right. So we're starting off with a song that I, in my opinion, is the best and most important song in hip hop history, and
Which
that's
is a
Fight.
good place to start, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's always good to start at the very top, Andrew. But "Fight the Power"
Mm.
by Public Enemy, in my opinion, is the greatest and most important song in hip hop history. Like it's both of those. It's the best song and it's the most important
Wow.
song, which is I think
It's
is
hard to
like
do both.
right. It's hard to do both. It says a lot about our culture because I mean, where do you want me to start with it, or do you just
Like, I mean, my what I would like to do briefly is like say these are like I'm coming to this obviously this show, this song, this all of this stuff where I'm totally not an expert in this at all. So part of this is like you teaching me like some of the history and stuff like that. I want to learn, right? So like I'm familiar with Public Enemy. Like I know the names Chuck D and Flava Flav, and I know Flava Flav's show with Bridget Nielsen that was on when we were college age ish. And I know the
like that?
Flavor of
Or
Love, right? Yeah, and I know the clocks, and I mean, like, and the song "Fight the Power." Like, I know, like, Fight the powers that be." Like, I know the hook, and I'm familiar with that, but I had not, previous to thinking about this show with you, like, paid attention to the words of it, to like the verses and stuff like that. So, um,
there's
yeah,
some
like I learned a lot.
Yeah, no, there's some very strong rhetoric. So one of the first things that I guess I want to unpack about the hip hop genre, and I say this on the other podcasts that I do, Andrew, is that writing a hip hop song is one of the hardest things to do in music. Like period. That includes like instrumentation involved. Like because of the format that we've created in the hip hop world, and because everybody's speech and pattern and tones and vocal inflections and all those things are different, what you find oftentimes is a lot of words and contextualization happening in very short and brief frameworks of time.
Right.
It's hard to create a connectivity in that format. If you actually really look at it, the format's really not built for it to be connected, like congealed, like successfully. If you just look at how it plays, like on a timing and space basis, you know, it's not set up for success necessarily. It really is like bob and weave, get in, get out, you know? And so it's a lot more dense and it's hard to pull off. You said something that I think is very strong, and this is one of the reasons that make this record so strong. Well, the author of the record, his voice is very strong, like his actual vocal pitch inflection. Like Chuck D, he comes through the speakers.
Yes, he does.
And he booms in a way that, first of all, almost maybe no rap voice before him ever had. Like nobody boomed on the mic like that before, except maybe KRS-One.
Right.
But Chuck D's voice is a little deeper than KRS's. You know what I mean? He has a deeper, he has more bass to it. And so when Chuck punches the mic, you know, it hits different. You feel something. You feel a little shook up. Well, a lot of people don't know, like Chuck was already trained on the mic. He was the radio personality and DJ for his college when he was in college. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Public Enemy started out when Chuck was actually like a DJ. Yeah, for the college radio station. That's actually early origins of Public Enemy. So you're dealing with somebody who's vocally trained and vocally strong and vocally gifted. These things matter when you're creating a message. The message is fight the power.
Right.
And so, well, you're like, what power are we fighting? Well, this is a song that's being released on the heels of the crack epidemic, Andrew, that it quite frankly crippled Black communities in the 80s and early 90s. You know,
the song came out late 80s, right?
I want to say I feel like yes, 1989.
Andrew. Well, he says it at the beginning of the song. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, 1989. No, because it rang into the next year. So a lot of the times, I mean, even me, Andrew, like as a kid, I feel like I got more acquainted with the record in 1990 than 1989, like originally.
Right.
But so the real message that Public Enemy had around that time was centered around the politics and the effects of the crack epidemic on the community. And it wasn't just with Fight the Power. I mean, they had been doing it with songs like Can't Trust It, Night of the Living Bassheads, Fear of a Black. Like you can just go down. I mean, you can go, people that are going to watch this and aren't really familiar with Public Enemy is arguably, I mean, they're one of the greatest hip hop groups of all time, still in my top 5, but definitely, Andrew, the most important hip hop group of all time in my estimation. And the rhetoric and the message is why. And never before did they hit the mark in terms of hitting the message and making a hit record at the same time. Like, because it's a hit.
That's hard to do.
That's hard to do, is to hit your mark on making like a great message, and it's a great big record. But that also goes to the production team, which is the Bomb Squad.
Well, I know that name, but I don't know anything about them. So,
well, you know, like they're very innovative, Andrew, in the sense that they kind of they're one of the first people to really bring full scale production to hip hop. They also executive produced Ice Cube's first album, America's Most Wanted, which has very similar themes to Public Enemy's rhetoric. So there was a message even behind the production, but the production was meant to feel like Black militant orchestrated music. You know, it was meant to be that. It was meant to give the struggle a sound. So, you know, so if what you're hearing sounds and feels militant to you, oh, that's intentional.
Yeah. I mean, the record's called Fear of a Black Planet, right? I mean, it's you can't like gloss over that.
I feel, yeah, that's Fear of a Black Panther. I mean, like, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is the album before that. So that's what I mean. Their message is very, very at the core of who they are. Never were they more on message than this record, but also made it funky. Like you could still dance and groove to it. Like you could bob your head in the car to it. Like a big part of what made this record so epic was the video. And here's where Flavor Flav is important. Flav's dancing in the video. He's getting down. He's boogieing. He's letting you know, like Flavor Flav was important to Public Enemy because he made what they were doing just lighthearted enough to be a little bit more accessible. It's like you need Flav dancing in the video. Like, you know what I mean? Like you need him kind of like bringing the tone down a little bit because it makes it easier to swallow when you see Flav have a good time or when you see Flav jump in and be like, yeah, fuck him and John Wayne. Like that does something to the people. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the most famous part of the song.
Right.
It's the only part of the song that Flav is on.
Right. Yeah. Let's get this party started. Right. I mean, that's a line that is taken like this is a great explanation because like I was familiar with the song, like just the hook, basically. Like I could sing like the fight the power, whatever. And like I'd heard the music and like whatever. And the line, let's get this party started right, has been taken out of context all kinds of ways. And I didn't register until like the last couple weeks, honestly, that line comes as part of the Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant to me. Like that's that it comes as part of that. And
when he's saying let's get this party right. I mean, let's get this party started, right? I mean, Andrew, what he's saying in the literal sense is let's start contextualizing things on a fair and balanced and appropriate scale.
Right.
So when he's talking about Elvis, he's really talking about what Elvis took from Black culture.
Right.
And when you don't acknowledge that he took from Black culture, it makes me say, F you.
Right. And exactly, he did. Like, and I'm coming at it from a place like I used to sing Elvis songs at karaoke when I was in high school. Like that's so I'm obviously coming at this at a different angle, but like you have like your heroes. Our heroes are complicated people, man. Like they can have good music, but also be part of a society that stole stuff from this creators. Like, and I mean, he was the one who brought that sound not to the masses, but brought it and made it like you're talking about for Flav too, like made it palatable for the wider culture. Like,
so, well, you want to know it? You struck a chord with me when you even brought up singing Elvis songs. So I'm going to tell you a moment how Public Enemy and Elvis have impacted my life because of what Flav said on Public Enemy's Fight the Power. And you have to understand when Fight the Power is coming out, I'm like 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
You know? So I'm hearing my older cousins play these records and play this music and stuff. And so, you know, when he's talking about Elvis was a hero to most, but he never, like when he's saying that, you have to understand, I didn't really know who Elvis was. And so my take on Elvis, well, that was my take on Elvis at 9, 10 years old. And it was always that way. Let me tell you what happened to me one day when I was in high school, Andrew. It was a Sunday morning. I was sitting down with my mom in the living room of our apartment. And an Elvis movie came on TBS. It was like some like corny little Hawaiian Elvis movie. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, cut this off. My mom was like, what are you doing? I love Elvis. I was like, oh my God. I was like, no, Mom. I'm like, what are you doing? But the contextualization of it, my mom was a young woman who was born in 1962. And so she falls time-wise right in the pocket of when a young woman would like what Elvis was doing, no matter what the genre
exactly
he had gotten at that time. Like she doesn't know culture vulture Elvis. She knows like super big rock star Elvis. She's like, what are you talking about? He stole from the culture. She doesn't know anything about that because by the time she's hearing him, it's like 1970.
Mm-hmm.
71,
Right.
72, 73. He's
And that's
already,
late Elvis too. That's like,
that's what I mean. He's
yeah.
already Elvis by then. So when I'm like, he's a whole, you know what, and I'm basing it on what Public Enemy is saying. You see how the contextualization
Yeah.
of things?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. So like one of the things that verse particularly, but the whole song really um does for me is, and obviously it's one of the first songs that I've listened to, and like I know that most hip hop music is not, I don't say it's not made with me as a target audience, but like I'm not the first person you think of, obviously, as when you're making those songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's one of those experiences where like this song is like I am not the target audience for the song. Like,
No,
and that's fine.
absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just um most people who look like me are not used to that experience, I guess.
I think the beautiful thing about a record like this, and that's why I stressed kind of like the hit and
Hmm.
the hit side of it and the visual aid side of it,
Mm.
is because, well, this is one of those records that got forced down a lot of people's throats about how big of a hit it was, whether you liked it or not.
Mm.
And it represents hip hop appropriately in that manner because the origins of hip hop is based on inner city angst and how to channel that inner city angst in a non-violent
Hmm.
fashion and channel it into something good. There's not a song that's more appropriate than Fight the Power if you look at it from that perspective, you
Right.
know? And then
Hmm.
if you actually go to the fact that it's like, man, shit is really dope too.
Yeah, it is.
It's like just on a fundamental, like I guess if we were talking sports, you would call it the eye test. So in music, you would call it the ear test. But the ear test, like it passes the ear test, like you feel like you're listening to something epic and all time great
Hmm.
too, and
Yeah.
you are, and it is, and it represents hip hop properly, and it harkens to a lot of things about what our culture could be, and that's why I go to the visual aid because you'll see the masses of black people together. You
Hmm.
know, I believe that was Harlem, but don't quote me. I believe they were in Harlem when they shot that video.
It seems like right there is kind of a bridge between the two songs too, like because um I mean the second song that we were going to compare here is Bob Dylan's "Blowin' in the Wind," and which is in the, I guess in the, as you call it, the hippie culture, the '60s culture or whatever, probably the most famous of the um civil rights slash um anti-Vietnam War kind of protest songs. Like it's one of those.
Is that what this
Um,
is? Is it so? Okay, so I found this to be. Go ahead. I want to hear more.
no, like I don't. Again, before we get into this, I do want to say, like out loud, for the record, that you're a hip hop expert. I am not a Bob Dylan expert by any stretch of the imagination. So, like, I don't want to like come up on here on the YouTube or whatever and pretend that like I know all this stuff about all these songs. Like I'm here to learn, and I'm also here to, you know, talk about how songs are put together and stuff like that. But I don't, but I'm not like a super expert on Bob Dylan history or whatever either.
Well, you know, I think most of the questions that I'm probably going to ask you, Andrew, in this format are more of just the overall musical variety. Because here was my first question: is
Mm.
that, like you said, anti-Vietnam, and so I immediately thought, it's like, oh, is this what protest music sounds like in this genre?
Yeah, I mean it's um Dylan is really lyrically based. I mean, he had an electric period later, that whatever. That's not really the point. Like, because here, let me, I even pulled my guitar out for this. Watch. So the chord progression of "Blowin' in the Wind" is the set is, and he plays this three times. Like, can you hear that coming through? Like that's like the first, like how many roads can a man walk down before they call him a man part, and then it does that three times, and then the answer my friend is blowing in the wind part goes like, So the point that I'm making with that is that there are approximately 37 billion folk songs that have that chord progression or one really, really close to it, right? Like it's not.
I mean, and I think you kind of said this because we've talked behind the scenes about
Mhm.
some of the records, and I think this record has come up a couple times. I mean, and this is just how I would contextualize it. It's just like, Bob Dylan is a lyricist.
He is a lyricist.
And because he's a lyricist, he separates himself through his lyricism from something that is like your contemporary, I guess what would be in hip hop, the boom, boom, clap, boom,
Hmm.
boom, clap. Right. It's like, well, yeah, anybody can rhyme over the boom, boom, clap, but some guys are special on the boom, boom, clap.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And he can take something like that where, and we'll talk about several other songs as we go through this series too, especially from like the country blues kind of genres, where the chord progressions and the melodies and stuff like that are the same ones that have been used for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. Like they're the chord, like the basic chord structure is the same. But what they're doing with it is the special thing. And the lyrics of the song are what separates it, because he's got most people would do like the because it's a series of rhetorical questions, right? You have a series of rhetorical questions, and then the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind, right? That is how it's basically set up. Most of these kind of songs would do two questions, and then the answer is, my friend is blowing in the wind, but he does three, and before he concludes it, which is an unusual kind of thing, like to the point where I play it, like I sometimes try to forget, my brain tries to forget the third one in the verse. It kind of edits it out almost.
Uh,
um so, and I mean, getting in, I don't want to get like too deep into like the actual poetics of the song, but like it's a series of questions, right? But he's also then he answers it, but only sort of, right?
okay. So can I get you to
Yeah.
pause right there? I guess that goes with one of the notes that I had, or at least half of the note. You're gonna like the first part. First part is fun. Second part is I said when I listened to it, I was like, man, I said I want to smoke a J and read some Thoreau, because that's how like it made me feel. It's like, well, he's questioning, but he's also answering. It's kind of like existential in that
Hmm.
sense. And I guess that whole 715 million guitar licks chosen or type of beat. I was like thinking to myself, I was like, well, this is perfect, like Smoke a J music to his whole thought process and nuance of him going back and forth in his own mind. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I heard some going back and forth in their own mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's um I love the fact that he answers but doesn't really. I mean, because the answer to all of the verses is the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer
Right.
is blowing in the wind. So which is
That answer.
it's saying where it is, but it's not saying what the answer is.
Right. It's
And
very poetic in that
yeah,
sense.
and all the questions that he's asking are truly rhetorical. Like they're questions we should know the answer to. They're questions that are like they're questions that about stuff that should have already happened, right? Like how many roads should a man walk down before we call him a man, right? Like the real answer to the question is like he shouldn't have to walk down any roads before we call him a man. Like, and all of the questions are like that, right?
Yeah.
They're all like, um, how many, I don't know. I should have the lyrics up in front of me, but I don't. But like but all of them are like that. They're all questions that are, um, questions that are saying, we should have done this already. This is not. I mean, it's talking about civil rights stuff. It's talking about ending the Vietnam War, but it's also like,
So can I tell
yeah,
you another thing that I heard? I heard like stagnation,
mm-hmm,
procrastination,
mm-hmm,
bureaucracy. Like I hear complaints in the unsaid by him
mm-hmm,
blowing in the wind. Like I think he's saying that like that is some of a white man's perspective on all these problems is kind of just to kind of like let it blow in the wind. It's really not my problem. So it's kind of like let somebody else really deal with it. It's like, oh, well, these blacks need civil rights, so that's really not my problem. It's blowing in the wind. Oh, well, this war with all these people getting murdered in these jungles that we really didn't map out and know the territories or province of. Like, that's really not our problem. It's kind of blowing in the wind. And so it's kind of him throwing his arms up and saying, well, I don't know what to do either, so I'm just going to go over here and roll with my oppressor a little bit.
I think...
you know what I'm saying? Because that's what, because has a person from a different background, that's how you take that when you don't answer the question. You get what I'm saying? It's like,
for sure.
You're kind of accepting all the oppression that you're talking about then now, aren't you? You know, that's what I mean. It's very like Thoreau, like it's like, well, you kind of answering your questions, but you're kind of not. But I kind of rather just smoke a J and listen to you talk about it, because I'm gonna tell you what the dopest part of the record for me was. It was like, it's like, is that a harmonica I hear on the record?
Oh yeah.
And now we're talking about something that it's like, okay, so let me tell you something that you're not gonna hear, Andrew, and that's a harmonica on a hip hop record. Because then I thought to myself, I'm like, name a hip hop record that has a harmonica on it. And I was like, Rosa Parks by Outkast.
I was gonna say Rosa Parks was the one that came to my mind immediately, but it's a short list.
Andrew, and after that, I couldn't think of another one, and I was like, well, we're right back to Stevie Wonder territory with the. But the harmonica was dope, and I'm saying that jokingly, but I'm saying that it was one of those things that signified to me that I wasn't listening to something that was involved with hip hop at all.
Right. And that's one of those things that I think this is a good pairing of songs to start with, because I think at some level they're arguing similar things, but they're coming at it from probably about as far apart as you can, like musically speaking, coming apart from far apart as you can possibly get.
If both of these songs are considered to be protest music for their respective genres, like I'm glad doing this, because there's a lot to unpack, because there couldn't be more different approaches and angles. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it's coming. But like I said, hip hop is something that's rooted in inner city angst. It's not rooted in something that's happy or bright or joyful. It's rooted in something that was like trying to keep more troubling things from happening.
And this song, it doesn't strike me at all that it was intended to be happy. Like, I mean, it does sound, just because of all it is a voice and a guitar and a harmonica. Like, there's no other production involved. That it does have that kind of bounce to it a little bit, like a little kind of.
No. It's got a little riff. I told you when the harmonica came in, I was like, oh, okay, so we about to get down right quick, you know?
Man, it's. And I like the blowing in the wind thing, because it's one of those things that can mean at least two different things. You hit on a third one, I think, too, actually, which is cool to hear your perspective on how that hits. But like, it can cut both ways. It can always be like always everywhere around you, like blowing in the wind is there. But it's still not something you can like grasp and like touch and hold, right? You can't, if it's blowing in the wind, like you're always feeling it. It's always there. It feels like it should be like here, right now, immediately, right? But it's not something you can ever like really grab.
This is what I mean about like how it's kind of existential. It's like, well, like he sounds like a hippie sometimes, but then sometimes like he sounds like Solomon in Ecclesiastics. You know what I mean? It's like he really ranges like that, and that's why it's like, well, no, that's something that in the hip hop genre that a lyricist does. Like, so the guy behind me, like one thing Biggie was great at was contextualizing things from line to line. Like, one of my favorite things that he did is one of his lines was used to call me fat, so now you call me Castro. You know. There's some of that going on with Bob Dylan, where it's like he can kind of go over there and then go over here really quick. That's a mark of a great lyricist, you know?
Right. And take you with him, right? I mean, so.
Take you with, yeah. We have to go along for the ride successfully for you to be great at it. Everybody's trying to do stuff like that, aspiring as an artist, musician, songwriter, or so forth. So, yeah.
And that's one of the things that we're trying to do, I think, here, and I think both of these songs do, is that they both sound I don't want to use the word poppy, but like they sound like songs you could play on the radio ish, given their context, right? I mean, like late 80s, early 90s, and 60s, whatever. But
They fall right in line.
they are they're sounds that you can enjoy the song, or people can enjoy the songs without paying attention to the words, like the melodies and the playing and the beat and the like that kind of stuff carries it, but and you don't have to pay attention to the words. But then I think what we're doing now is like digging into the words a little bit,
but that's why it's important that we discuss like the hit side. So I'm going to tell you, that's why I said it's like it's. Let me get back to a couple more of my notes. Yes, I like my first thoughts were that it was very poetic and folk tale-ish at the same time. You know, like it's a lot of different things for it to be simple. The melody is good. It's poetic. It's kind of telling a story. There's some back and forth. There's some questioning of oneself in there.
Definitely.
There's some harmonica play, which for Black people, we're just going to think about Stevie Wonder. I'm just going to tell you like that is. It's like I heard a harmonica. I was like, oh, Stevie Wonder's instrument. You know what I mean? That's and so like it's doing a lot of things in terms of what it invokes in your imagination and creative process, Andrew, for it to just be a record with a guitar lick and a harmonica play that's not dense with words, more melodic and slow and kind of riffy. And one thing that I noticed about the record is like I could totally see this record coming on the radio, me driving in the car and not hearing one word that was said while the song was playing, but still nodding my head the entirety of the time while the song was playing. And people think that that's like not a good thing. It's like, no, that's very, very hard to do.
And Fight the Power does that for me too, or did that before I like paid attention to the words. Like I said earlier, like I know the hook, like I knew the hook from when I was in like high school, right? Like it's like that part sticks obviously, and it's meant to. But like you can just like listen to the beat and the whatever, and not pay attention to the words and not. And enjoy it without getting the message. But when you get into what both of them are saying, there's a whole nother series of levels to all of it.
So there's a sense of hopelessness to Fight the Power too that doesn't get discussed. That does make it comparable to Blowin' in the Wind in terms of the problem not being resolved. Oh, well, they're telling you to fight the power, but they're really not telling you how.
Right. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody ever talks about that part of the record. It's like, that's what I mean is that, no, the rhetoric there is strong, but if we're going to get into the nuances of it, you know what I mean? I'm 40 now, so I look at it differently. It's like, no. The message, clear, outstanding. The rhetoric, all-time great. Epic. Voice, legendary. The explanation of how to get there.
Yeah, it's and both of them.
And so let's go. Hold on. So real quick, let's go back to the whole Elvis thing.
Yeah.
Well, explaining the whole Elvis thing is nice and it's entertaining, but it's not really helping us with inequality now, is it?
No, it's pointing out an example of something that went badly, right? Which is what Blowing in the Wind's doing too. It's pointing out examples of stuff that didn't go well.
So they're great show cars to put in the front of the dealership. You get what I'm saying? It's great to put them in the front of the dealership and show them off. Yeah. And so that's where both of those songs are similar. And that's why I was excited about doing this, because it's like, oh, when you're listening to both of these records, it's like, well, there's really no way to contextualize these records together. Oh, no, there's plenty. You got to look at it. And if you really look at it for their respective genres, oh, those are show pieces that you put in the front room of the lobby for those cultures. About what those cultures represent.
Yes, absolutely. They're like
those cars that you put in the front, it's like if you actually like look a little bit more, that may not be the best car on that lot, though, if you really start digging into the message, you know?
Yeah.
And I only say that about Fight the Power, and nobody questions that about Fight the Power or brings that up because it's such an important song. It's just a valid assertion that needs to be made about the record. It's like, well, and I only say that because Chuck B is intelligent and highly educated.
Oh yeah.
And was dealt with the unenviable task of wanting to talk about those matters. You know what I'm saying? Unlike contemporaries. And that's where the format of rap is hard, because also too, that's why I brought up the format of rap early. Part of the reason why the explanation isn't there is because, well, there's not time to explain based on that hip hop format.
Yeah, they've packed a lot of stuff into that small amount of space. Like,
They did a whole lot. I mean, and we're splitting hairs, like, you know what I
right?
mean?
No, I mean, and you got to be able to dance too, right? Like, you got to be able to like, or groove in your car or whatever. Like, you have to be able to do both of those things.
Right.
And
I'm pretty
yeah,
certain.
you're talking about. I guess they're both taking steps in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah, taking steps. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
With another, but yeah.
I'm cool
So
with it.
yeah, what do you have any like final or finishing thoughts? What do you?
Um, no, man. Like, I think that's the closing idea that, and we're going to get into this as we do more of these too. I'm sure that though the antecedent or the heart of hip hop is, I'm quoting you now, or trying to anyway, like the inner city struggle, right? Like that, it's just where it's coming from. And this and the Dylan song are coming like from a much more rural kind of area. Like, I mean, that kind of world. I mean, this is,
How about
he,
this? How about this? How about this? It's like it feels like when Bob Dylan wrote that record, he went to see a friend that he went to high school with that lived like in the inner city of whatever respective town that he was from, and it and he's not a bad guy, but it evoked a whole set of emotions in him as he was driving home and leaving that area.
yeah, he's trying to, I mean, obviously he's doing this in like early mid 60s too. So, the consciousness of, most white people in early mid 60s is very different, obviously. But I think he's doing his best in this song to bring other people along, like to
No,
explain
trying to push his
what,
people along on the way his
yeah,
people are going to sit up there and call him an in lover,
right.
Andrew.
And they did probably, but like,
Oh, they
um,
probably did anyway. Yeah, absolutely.
but and hippie and everything else, sure. I mean, like
Yeah,
it's
Andrew, probably in succession. You in loving hippie mf'er, like
yeah,
yeah,
probably, yeah.
like in succession.
Um,
And so, and that's what I mean is it's like no, he's not. He's not like you can see that. And this is the lyricist side of him probably. And I'm not super familiar with Dylan's record. I'm familiar with some of his stuff,
mhm.
but he he has, I think, a quality that almost every legendary artist has, no matter what genre that
Mhm.
is that he appears to be sensitive to the environment around him.
Yeah, yeah.
All the legends have that in every genre. You know,
Mhm.
like all the legends are sensitive to the environment. Tupac, Bob
Mhm.
Dylan, Prince, Nas, Michael Jackson, Bob Marley,
Yeah,
you know, sensitive, like what Erica Badu says at the start of Tyrone, like I'm sensitive about my like be nice,
yeah, for sure.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Real.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So I thought this was a great way to start off. Yeah.
yeah, man, it was, I think it came out okay.